What is up, and welcome to the newest podcast on the LA Football Network, the Bruin Bible. This is your new host, Will Decker. I am lucky to be joined for my first guest is Ryan Dyrud, the founder of the LA Football Network and the man who gave me this position. Ryan, what is going on in Southern California?
What's up, Will? It's a beautiful day like always. It's a little hot today, a little in the 90s, but can't complain. But pumped, man, to be having you on the network, to have a show dedicated solely to our UCLA Bruins. I live right in their backyard. I'm like less than a mile from the Rose Bowl. Go to it, at least once a week. So we cover them on my show, but I'm excited that you're going to be digging in even deeper and just fully enveloping yourself in UCLA Bruins. So stoked to have you, and thanks for having me on as your first guest of the Bruin Bible.
Man, it is an honor to have you. Bruins fans, we're going to be breaking down the upcoming 2021 season, offense, defense, big storylines. You obviously know this is a huge year for Chip Kelly and company out there in Westwood. So we're going to give you everything we can to make sure this is as good as possible. Like I said, we're going to be talking about the offense, defense, a little guy named DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the veteran quarterback for the Bruins. A little guy named Greg Dulcich as well, who might be NFL bound after his year in Westwood. But we would be remiss to start this podcast if we didn't do it with Terry Donahue, the legendary UCLA Bruins head coach, passed away on Sunday at 77 years old after a 2-year battle with cancer. What he means to the UCLA program, you can't put a limit on that. He's the first player, assistant coach, and head coach in the history of college football to appear in a Rose Bowl all at separate times. He's a legend. He has 98 career Pac-12 wins, 151 career wins. Ryan, you're down in Los Angeles. How are the Bruin family taking the loss of a legend?
Well, obviously it's been, sad and tough. Donahue, I believe 2 years ago, was diagnosed with cancer. So it wasn't a shock, if you will. Obviously, it's always surprising when someone does pass, but, people knew that this may be coming. But he was everything to UCLA football. I mean, if USC, their rival, has had a lot of good coaches in their day. Obviously, exclamation pointed by Pete Carroll as of, the most recent, I would say. But Terry Donahue, is UCLA football, 5 Pac-10 championships, never won a natty, but, a lot of winning seasons, obviously 8-4-1 in bowl games. And just the level of players that he brought to the NFL as well. Obviously he was a big reason why Troy Aikman transferred from Oklahoma to UCLA because of the relationship that Donahue had with Barry Switzer. So just an awesome coach, an awesome person. It's hard to compare anyone to the late great, Coach Wooden with UCLA basketball. So I don't want to exactly put him in that realm per se, but Donahue means that much to the UCLA football program because of what he built and it's why I think every year, because if you look at UCLA, they haven't had a lot of recent success, but because of what they had in his 19 years as a head coach, 24 years on the staff, it's like that fans just expect that to come back, and we haven't found it yet. Hopefully soon, but yeah, tough loss. Prayers and thoughts to his whole family as they go through and mourning his loss. But phenomenal teacher, phenomenal coach, phenomenal person. So big loss for Bruin Nation.
And Bruins Nation, if you're young like I am and did not have the pleasure to watch a Terry Donahue coach team, we'll kind of get you up to speed. He won 3 Rose Bowls in a 4-year span. Think about how impressive that is. 1983, 1984, and 1986. Those are the only 3 Rose Bowls he won, but he was dominant in the pack at that point in time. He was an assistant coach under Rams legendary head coach Dick Vermeil, who led the Rams to their only Super Bowl title in St. Louis. And when he won the Rose Bowl as a player, he was a walk-on. And in 1965, they won the first one in 1966. Was also a GM for my 49ers from 2001 to 2005. Pretty impressive stuff there from Terry Donahue. Rest in peace to his family. But we got a 2021 season to talk about, Ryan. And Chip Kelly is on the hot seat. There's no doubt about it. 10-21 career record as a coach down in Westwood. 0-6 out of conference. But he's going to get some help. He's got 19 of 22 starters returning this year. Are you optimistic about the Bruins going into 2021?
I'm very optimistic. I'm always optimistic, though. We haven't entered that well yet, but you'll know I'm always a glass half full guy. Everyone that listens to the LA Football Podcast knows that. But you said it, 19 of 22 returning starters. This is now Chip Kelly's fourth season. I know it's been slowly moving, but every year they've gotten better. They've won like one more game than they have the year prior. So at least there's been improvement. What it's really going to come down to, which I know we'll get into, but it's going to come down to DTR and how he's developed. Because I think he has a shot to really turn heads and maybe sneak up into that first round talk for quarterbacks, but we'll discuss him more later. But as a whole, the defense, I think, was a huge improvement last year. I mean, that was their biggest heel almost 2 years ago. And last year, the defense improved mightily, and they're returning basically everyone but Osa Digizua on the defensive line. And then on the offense, other than Demetric Felton, they're returning everyone too. You got, Chase Cota and Kyle Phillips, who are phenomenal receivers. I think Kyle Phillips will challenge for the top receiver in the Pac-12. I don't think he'll beat out Drake London, who just plays across the freeway at USC. I think Drake London's one of the best in the country. But Kyle Phillips is very capable, very good. You already mentioned Dulcich. Seems like this UCLA team always, produces great tight ends. So, yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on it, but I am very optimistic about this UCLA team. I do think they finally get an out-of-conference win also, Will. Finally, after 6 attempts, I think they get an out-of-conference win this year.
3 out-of-conference games this year, Hawaii, Fresno State, and the big one, LSU is coming to the Rose Bowl, the 2019 national champions. Ed Orgeron returning to LA. That is going to be a fun one down in Los Angeles. I'll be making the trip out for that. I'm hoping Ryan joins me at that game as well. But there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. I think if you're a Bruins fan, we're going to get to DTR in a second. But just talking about the offense as a whole, we finally saw Chip Kelly's offense hit the ground running in Los Angeles last year. Throw out the record, but the offense, the Bruins were the number 1 team in the pack on TD scored, Pac-12 passing touchdowns as a team, and number 1 in first downs per game. And you're returning the top 7 offensive linemen from that team. I mean, that is pretty impressive stuff down there in Los Angeles. The defense, I'm still a little bit worried about. I think Azzanaro maybe should have gotten the axe. I think that's a guy that he did improve enough last year to maybe keep his job. But as much as Chip is on the hot seat, I mean, his job may depend on the D coordinator because they have been really bad in the passing game. No Demetric Felton, no Osa Odigizua, as you mentioned. But there's a lot of reasons to be excited. And I think we got to talk about the guy Dorian Thompson-Robinson at this point. Ryan, I don't know if you played NCAA football growing up, but this was the guy that you would create a player with. And, I've heard all the hype about this kid for years. I used to follow the high school recruiting rankings like a Bible, no pun intended. And this guy was an incredible athlete. And the report on him was, if he ever learns how to play quarterback, watch out, because this guy, his ceiling is unlimited at the college level. And I think we're starting to finally see that with Dorian. Played 5 games last year, 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, ran for over 300 yards and 3 tutties as well. Call me crazy, Ryan. Do you think Dorian could be the offensive player of the year in the pack?
You're not crazy. I've been trying to say this too. And a few other people I know that follow UCLA really closely agree, but nationally, obviously, no one's talking about it. Even within the conference, probably no one's talking about it. But here's a guy that's improved every single year. And there's been games, Will, I know you're probably new in following the Bruins football, but there's been games where this guy is so frustrating. Great kid. So I'm not talking anything about his character, but just his quarterback play can be so frustrating. One play in specific 2 years ago against Utah, and he did this all the time where he would drop back, like 7-step drop, pressure would come up the middle. Instead of, moving to the side, he would just turn and run straight backwards, end up fumbling, ends up being a touchdown the other way. Did that often. We're finally starting to see him not do that, which is one huge step. Against Colorado in week 1 last year, had his struggles, made some, pretty poor decisions where they were dropped down big to Colorado and then came back in the second half and ended up winning. But down the stretch, he started looking more like, as you were saying, like a quarterback, more seasoned, putting the ball in better placements, making better decisions, throwing the ball away if it wasn't there, not forcing a play, not trying to use his superior athleticism to do things that really he didn't need to do. And I think that's why UCLA saw a lot more success and why this year I'm so excited about it, because with a true offseason, not a COVID offseason, with him getting his entire, returning cast back, his entire receiving core back that he can work with. I think he's a guy that can put up crazy numbers. And if he can keep that interception total to 4 or 5 for the season, we're talking potentially Pac-12 player of the year. We're talking a guy, like I said, that I think could sneak into maybe the first round, which is right now is unheard of, because right now people are probably having this guy as undrafted or maybe a mid-round guy just based on pure athleticism, a guy that maybe goes in not even as a quarterback. But if he can really hone in on the head things, work on his what he does mentally, he has all the physical tools, phenomenal arm strength. Obviously, you mentioned his running ability, and that's what NFL teams want nowadays. So if he can do that, and you're seeing him put up 27, 28, 29 touchdowns, 4 to 5 interceptions, gets, 8 to 10 rushing as well, you're going to maybe talking about in April about a potential first round pick that right now no one's talking about. So long answer for your easy question, but yes, I think it's not at all crazy to say this guy could potentially be the Pac-12 player of the year.
I think you're dead right on that, man. I was watching some QB analysis videos online, and some of the turnovers are maddening when it comes to Thompson-Robinson. But a trending sign for him last season, granted, it was only a 5-game sample size, but it was the first time he had completed into the mid-60s or 60s at all in completion percentage, which I know the NFL scouts really look at. He was at 65 last year. Mm-hmm. And, I just think with his ability, like you were saying, he could sneak into the first round. What do these, pro teams want in a quarterback nowadays? They want the guys that can move around out of the pocket, extend the play, get some arm strength. And granted, his arm has improved a little bit since he's gotten to Westwood. I'd like to see maybe a little bit more improvement with some play action and stuff like that. But like you said, man, the sky is the absolute limit for this guy. And if he could put the tools together, I know he's got an offensive genius with Chip Kelly calling the plays out there. Man, it could be really scary for opponents out there. We nailed all the Pac-12 stats that they were leading the conference in. Another year, this is going to be his 3rd year as a starter coming in. I really think we're going to see the jump that he's going to frighten the rest of the Pac-12. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he's going to be my preseason Pac-12 player of the year. So that's how much I have faith in him. I want to move on to a guy that I've fell in love with from watching film. That's Greg Dulcich, the tight end out in Westwood. Watched a ton of film on Dulcich. This guy averaged close to 20 yards a catch last year, 5 touchdowns, 519 yards, and that was in a 7-game season. Man, you turn on the USC film last year, that may have been the best player on the field that night. 10 catches, 167 yards, a touchdown. That is with, an NFL talented defense that SC brings to the table year in and year out. I mean, he wasn't doing this against Hawaii or one of those smaller schools. He was doing that against, SC. And the guy he reminds me of, and this is at the college level, I don't want to get carried away with comparisons. He reminds me of another 85. He reminds me of George Kittle. I mean, he is fast. He loves to get in the dirt and block. He's not afraid of contact in the open field. He's a great route runner. Tell me what you see in Greg Dulcich, because I think this guy has a chance to be not only the best tight end in the pack, but he's got a chance to win the Mackey Award when all is said and done.
I love it. Yeah. He's been great. I mean, at 6'4", 215, he's a good big frame that could probably even put on more weight if needed. You mentioned he's like a true tight end, right? Like a George Kittle in the sense that he can, he puts his hand in the dirt, he can block, he can, run little, fleet patterns out of the backfield, but also goes in the middle and gets it. And if you need him for a big first down, he's a guy that brings it down usually. And, he can have those games where he goes off, and he can have a game where he has 2 catches, but he's been very, very important in the run game. So I love Greg Dulcich too. The UCLA has produced some good tight ends. We mentioned, Caleb Wilson before, and obviously he's in the NFL now and, hasn't done tremendous in the NFL, but he was very good at UCLA. But
yeah, I mean, like you were saying, UCLA is a powerhouse when it comes to tight ends and advancing them to the next level. I see Greg Dulcich following that to a T, and I really think he's got a chance to be awesome. Did you watch that 62-yard touchdown catch he had against SC? I mean, that was incredible stuff.
Yeah. No, fantastic. He's really athletic too for how he looks. I mean, coming local kid out of La Cañada. Yeah, exactly. Walk on. Recruited by like no one. No one wanted this kid, and now he's making a name for himself and playing great. Had a great game against Cal also. So I mean, he's a great kid and rooting for him. But yeah, he's a really good tight end. I think is I like the hype you're giving him because I think he has a lot of potential to do some big things this year. And could be one of those guys that is the deciding factor in that LSU game. Who knows?
Hey, man, you're not wrong on that. You brought up Kyle Phillips and Chase Cota earlier, two veteran receivers that are familiar with the offense. I'd say they're probably two slot guys. One of the areas I think they're going to struggle with is not having that outside guy. Maybe the Texas A&M transfer Cam Brooks steps up and solidifies that. But from your opinion, what makes Kyle Phillips a guy that could possibly get 800, 900 yards receiving next year, maybe high single-digit touchdowns, 7 or 8? What do you see in Kyle Phillips and Chase Cota?
Just really good pure route runners. They can run the whole route tree. They have great hands. So not guys that are going to drop the ball. They can catch it in traffic. I think they're just really solid receivers. They're not going to blow you away with their speed, but they're faster than they look on tape. And when the ball gets in their hands, they make things happen with it. But they got good size, not an unbelievable size, but they're not small. They're just kind of like a very well-rounded, and they're both very similar in their game style. So it kind of remind me, I'm not necessarily comping them exactly play style, but just how they are as receivers. They kind of remind me like Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp here with the Rams. They're just both solid receivers that make plays when you need them, that have good hands, that kind of do whatever you want them as a team. They're not going to be mad if they only have 2 catches one game because they're not chasing stats or whatnot. They put the team first. So two guys I really like a lot, but I think they have the potential absolutely to put up the numbers if you need them to. But then they also just, will go in and block and do things if the offense wants them to do that. And they want to be run heavy, which this offense has a definitely ability to be run heavy also because they got some good running backs. So they just add bring a lot of stuff to the table. And I think they're two receivers that are two of the best duos in the Pac-12, I think.
Love to hear that. And before we get to the run game, because that's next up, I want to hear a prop bet prediction. We're going to go for 1,800 yards combined between Cota and Kyle Phillips. What 1,800 yards, 14 touchdowns? You go over or under on that?
Oh man, that's a guy. I maybe I'd be in 2 glass hole, but I think I would go over. I think because of what I think DTR is going to do this year. Now it's hard because we just talked about Dulcich, and obviously he's going to get touches also. He's going to get his yards. He's going to get receptions. But with a full season this year, it's not out of the realm that, they get each of them in that 900 to 1,000 range to go over that 1,800. And you figure if they can each get close to double-digit touchdowns, that puts them over 14. So I just think DTR is going to have a really solid year, and they're going to be airing it out. So I'm going to go with over 18 and 14. I like it.
Couldn't agree more, my man. And let's go down to the run game. Top 7 linemen from last year returning, including one of my favorites in all of the Pac-12, Sean Ryan, the bookend right tackle, Alec Anderson, I don't think is getting enough pub right now. This is a run game that I think some people may be sleeping on a little bit, given the returning lineman, given how effective it was last year. And let's be honest, they've got a dynamic duo in Britton Brown. And the guy that I think people aren't paying enough attention to is Zach Charbonnet, a high 4-end star guy that could have been 5-star on a lot of different recruiting websites. This guy had 11 touchdowns in his first year at Michigan, kind of fell out of favor with the new offensive coordinator out in Ann Arbor and Josh Gaddis. Kind of give me your thoughts on the run game. I think this is going to be the strongest part of the offense, especially when you add that DTR can scramble out of the pocket too.
So Britton Brown could have gone in the draft last year, and he would have been drafted, even though Demetric Felton was the main back in Westwood, and obviously we saw how good he was. But when it came to just more of a pure running back, Britton Brown was that for the Bruins last year. And there were some games where he looked fantastic, and that was with Demetric Felton looking good too. So the fact they were able to do that with both of them, but he was much more thunder to Felton's lightning. Now you add Zach Charbonnet, who you mentioned it, had a killer freshman year with Michigan, just a local kid here from Oaks Christian, high recruit. And then, just disappeared his sophomore year. I don't know a ton. I don't follow a ton of Michigan football, so I don't know if there's any off the field stuff, or if you mentioned it, the offensive coordinator just kind of went a different direction and felt someone he liked more. But I mean, their loss is UCLA's gain, because this is a phenomenal running back that when he hit that transfer portal and he came back to UCLA, I thought this was a huge get. And I was shocked it was not covered more nationally. I mean, UCLA doesn't get a lot of national pub anyway when it comes to football. But I was very surprised even locally it didn't get talked about, because I thought that was a tremendous get. And then you add him with Britton Brown, and you obviously have depth with other guys as well. But you have a tremendous 1-2 punch now. We already mentioned the receivers, the tight end, And if DTR develops like we think, I mean, this is a very scary offense. And obviously the 7 offensive linemen you mentioned, this is a very scary offense that can do it in any facet. If they play a game against a Stanford team where they need a ground and pound, where we saw Joshua Kelly back in the day, be able to do that, they have that again. Yeah. If they need to get in an airstrike attack with USC, because USC runs the more spread offense with Slovis, London, and those guys, well, now they can do that with the guys they have. So they're able to really tackle all facets on offense, and Chip Kelly can really finally, I think this is the big thing about Chip that a lot of people weren't giving him credit for just because they wanted to see instant success, is he wasn't able to really implement fully his offense just because, getting guys, he had a super young team, like one of the youngest teams in the Pac-12 when he came in. And so just finally now I think he can really unveil his playbook and really unleash all these weapons to do what he wants to do. And if it works, they're going to look great. Chip Kelly's going to get extended. If it doesn't work, then you say, okay, it was Chip's fault all along, and we need to hit the reset button. But I think it will work. So, but yeah, excited about these running backs, man. I think they'll be good.
Yeah. To touch on a few of those points, Britton Brown averaged 6.6 yards a carry last year. Averaged. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's damn near 7 yards a carry. I mean, what more do you want from your tailback? And like you said, it's familiarity is now here for the UCLA Bruins, and the talent is there too. So you combine both of those, I think they're going to hit the ground running this year on offense. And, I think a point that gets overlooked a lot when talking about Chip Kelly was the offensive coordinator at Oregon 2 years before he took over for the head coaching position. Mm-hmm. So the offense was established when he was there. He wasn't changing anything. They were running his system. And it took that long for them to become that national powerhouse. I mean, they were great, pretty good before them, but they became great when Chip became the head coach because they had the familiarity there and the talent was there as well. And I think something similar could potentially happen for UCLA football this year. And to touch back on your Charbonnet point, the offensive coordinator, Gaddis for Michigan, he's more of a speed and space guy. I follow Michigan a little bit more than the average because my grandpa's a graduate from there. It's kind of a talking point between the two of us. And he was as big of a Charbonnet supporter as anyone I've talked to. And he goes, hey, the kid can still play. They just went with Hassan Haskins because that guy can fly. And that's what they want as an offense. They just want to take the top off every play. Despite Charbonnet having like a 70-yard touchdown run against Minnesota to open the college football season last year. So I think that's their loss. It's UCLA's gain. Let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. I think it was a little surprising for a lot of people out there to see Jerry Azzinaro get rehired as the defensive coordinator. He runs that 4-2-5 defensive scheme. But there was tangible improvement there. I will say that. They went from the 104th ranked defense in 2018 to the 117th ranked total defense in 2019. For fans who are unfamiliar, there's 130 Division I football teams. Not great. Yeah. He did make an improvement to 73rd last year in 2020, which is a clear step up from where he had them. Still a lot of issues in the pass game. They were 113th in opponent pass yards per game last year, 102nd in opponent third down percentage. But, we got a couple guys there that I really like coming back. What do you see with this defense, and who are some of the players that stand out for you?
Yeah, it's crazy that when they ranked 70th last year, and that just still felt like such a huge improvement because of what they were before. So when Anzera was not only retained, he was actually extended. I think it was shocking for like every UCLA fan. And obviously that was just, Chip Kelly's guy. He followed him everywhere. I think he from Oregon. I think he even went with him to Philly and maybe even with the Niners. I don't know for sure, but I know he's been with him in a lot of places. So it's just his guy and to a fault. And I think that was a lot of criticism for Chip was a move he should have made, but we did see improvement last year. The recruiting on that side of the ball has gotten a little better. They did actually steal a recruit from USC just this year that they're adding on the defensive line, which could be a very good get for them. But some guys returning. I love Quantrez Knight. I think he's, a solid linebacker, kind of a tweener almost, if you will, can play a little safety too if needed. But he's a guy returning that I think is someone to watch for who could have a very big year. Stephen Blaylock is another guy at corner or at safety, that plays, can play in the box. He's their strong safety, but he can also play center field if need be. And Quentin Lake, the free safety. So I think they're really strong at the safety position because they can both be very interchangeable and do what you need to do. And then Quantrez Knight's kind of that in your face kind of rah guy that I think gets the guys going. So the big question will be, how they can keep the defensive line going with Osa being, Odigizua being a really big loss after having a tremendous season in just 6 games. But I think we'll see improvement still. I think the fact that you're returning, like you said, 10 of the 11 starters, essentially, you're not going to get worse. You wouldn't think. And so if they can jump from 70 into like the 40s and you have the offense we already talked about, I mean, that'd be great. I think they could even potentially jump higher than that. But even if they just make that into the 40s, which is not anything to write home about as a, Power 5 school, but still 30 spots up, and then you get the offense going, and then this team can do some things. So yeah, I think the defense should look a little better, and I think it's something to be excited about. But yeah, I agree with you that there's definitely still uneasiness, if you will, or what's the phrase we always use? Like reserved optimism. So we'll see.
No, I completely agree. Quentin Lake is an interesting name you brought up. He hasn't played more than 5 games the past 2 years due to injuries.
Mm-hmm.
That guy is as solid in the secondary as you'll see. Maybe
Just
not all Pac-12, first or second team, but this guy is a very solid starter. To get him back there to help out the secondary, like we mentioned, they were 113th in opponent passing yards per game. You got to think that goes down a little bit with Quentin Lake being healthy. Correct me if I'm wrong. Caleb Johnson's coming back next year. Am I right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. Caleb Johnson.
Yeah, their will linebacker. Yeah, he'll be back. Yeah.
Led the team in sacks and, tackles as well. He had 6 sacks in 7 games last year. The Bruins, for all their defensive faults, they led the Pac-12 in sacks, which I was shocked to see.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of a Johnson, Odowize. How do you say it? Osa?
Odigizua. Yeah.
Odigizua. That is a mouthful, but I'm glad I got that out. So Johnson and Odigizua were wreaking havoc on opposing offenses all season last year. So you got those 2 guys. Odigizua is gone, but Caleb Johnson is back. And, I just think with, them leading the Pac-12 in sacks, they also led the Pac-12 in yards per carry, defensively. I think there's some things to ride home about. And like you said, 10 of 11 starters coming back. I think that's a huge thing for the Bruins. And, man, I think we could potentially see them, I think being even in the 50s or 60s with how potent that offense is, I really think the Bruins are going to be, just outscoring people left and right. I think that's a huge testament to them getting maybe 9 or 10 wins next year. So I think, I don't know. I'm optimistic, like you said, about this D. Ryan, last question I got for you. Give me an over-under on the win total. We're going to go with 8.5 for the Bruins for next year.
Well, I think in the out-of-conference games, you said they have. Not you said they do. They have 3 games. I like them taking at least 2 out of 3 of that, which they haven't taken any before. So I think that's a huge start. I think Fresno State is always a pretty good Mountain West team, but I know they've had some overhauls since the coaching changed just a year ago. I like them over Hawaii, even though Hawaii has isn't Hawaii's coach Fresno State's old coach, if I'm not mistaken?
It used to be Todd Graham from Arizona State.
You're right.
Did he get fired?
No, I think you're right. You're right. It was Hawaii's old coach went somewhere else, I think. But anyway, that doesn't matter. So I like them 2 out of 3 at least. And if they can shock LSU, let's go for it. But I don't feel good enough yet to say that. So that being said, and then once they get to their Pac-12 opponents, I mean, in the South, I like them a lot. I think USC is still a nudge up. Utah is Utah, so they're always competitive, even though they don't necessarily have the recruits that other schools have. But just with Kyle Whittingham, that's always a good team, and they're going to be better than they were last year. But I kind of like UCLA right now. I like them a little better than Utah. I like them better than Arizona. I like them better than Colorado. ASU is a wild card. Everyone loves them, but with all the recruiting allegations they have against them right now, who knows what they're actually going to look like on the field with all the off the field stuff going on. And then obviously they'll have a couple of North opponents they'll play. But overall, I think I'm going to go over. I think that you mentioned 9-10 wins. I think that's not out of the realm of possibilities. So either way, they'll be in a bowl game. So either way, I think Chip season is saved because I think that's really the bar for him to save his job is a bowl game. And I think they'll easily get that with 6 wins. But I like them at 9 or more this year.
I love it. I couldn't agree more. Some entertaining games coming up for them. We mentioned LSU is going to be traveling to the Rose Bowl. We're thinking about maybe putting together something big for that, like a pregame party through the LA Football Network. So We want you guys out there. We're going to give you guys advance notice. We'll have more details coming about that soon. LSU is obviously a big one. The Arizona State game I've got circled because, I remember watching the NFL, a couple of years ago, and it was Mahomes, Deshaun Watson. That was the big quarterback battle. Getting a DTR Jaden Daniels matchup, I mean, that is the Pac-12 equivalent of a Watson Mahomes quarterback battle. That is going to be one where you're on the couch, you're watching the game, you're not doing anything else during those 3 hours because at any time you can get a 70-yard touchdown run, you can get a 70-yard bomb. These are two guys that will probably play at the next level in some capacity if they reach their ceilings. I think that'll be a hell of a game. And, if they're rolling out of that Arizona State game, because I believe that's the 5th game of the season, let's just say they're 4-1, they take a loss to LSU. I think the sky's the limit because you look at these Bruins teams, they've started off notoriously slow under Kelly. I think they were 0-5 his first year there. They were 0-3 in 2019. So if they can get a good start, I think the momentum is there to potentially get the Bruins into a bowl game this year and maybe even a Pac-12 championship appearance. Ryan, I want to thank you so much, man. This was a lot of fun. I could already see this is going to be a huge success, doing some awesome stuff with the Bruin Bible. Forever the first guest, my man. I incredibly appreciate you coming on.
You're the man, dude. Thank you. Quickly, I said on my show just 2 weeks ago, I think, that I think the USC UCLA game right now, things can change, but as of right now, preseason, I think the USC UCLA game decides the Pac-12 South winner. So that'll be interesting to watch. But brother, appreciate you. Super pumped you're on the network. Super excited to see where the Bruin Bible goes. I know you're going to provide awesome coverage, awesome content, and it's just going to get better and better. And we'll try to get fans as involved as possible. So thanks for having me on, though. It's been a blast talking to you, dude.
Much love, brother. I'll talk to you soon. All right.